Let me get to you, Mr. Jain, in here. I just spoke about financial education with Mr. Agrawal. How critical do you think, that as a role for brokerages is to take as far as informing the investor, educating the investors at this point in time? Or is it that, we've seen that perhaps the investor base is not increasing as much as the volumes in the market is increasing? So do you think financial education is very critical?
There's no doubt that financial education is very critical. See, the broker plays two roles. One is execution and the other is advisory role. So when you talk about execution, it's just executing the transaction on the exchange. In the olden days, on the floor of the exchange, there was the only service that broker used to provide, for which he used to charge. But I think with with the changes in the technology, the execution part will become less and less value, and advisory will become more significant in terms of value. So maybe today I would say that execution accounts for say 30% of the value that broker adds, and advisory is 70%. This will change to say 5 and 95. Because the efficiency in execution on a screen base can be taken for granted. It's not the older days of when you're a jobber and there's a discussion, negotiation and understanding of the market. Within advisory now, if we have to expand the market, and as Raamdeo rightly said, that the few brokers will become large and they will have resources, because when you invest in education, your payback will be over a period of time. Because you build your brand, you get new customers who may not be active traders, they may not be large investors, they'll take time to understand the market, make some money and grow. That responsibility will be taken by brokers only when they have a size, scale and reach which is across the country. It has already started happening, because most of us, whether you look at Motilal Oswal, India Infoline, we do conduct number of investor awareness seminars and these kind of meetings. But given the breadth and size of this country, whatever we do is very little. It's still a drop in the ocean. And we'll also, I think this is one area where we need support from the government and regulator as well. The public policy has to understand that equity is an important asset class for investors. And I'll give a very brief perspective on this. They talk about financial inclusion, that will open a bank account. I don't think that will lead to anywhere, because you open a bank account, put 500,000 rupees, at the earliest opportunity the fellow will withdraw the money, and it become complete waste of resources. You make banks give them small loans, as Mr. Aditya Puri very rightly said in award function, that without the capability to repay is going to be useless. Now you look at equities over a longer term, will give return of 18% per annum. And there's a logical argument for that, because economy grows at 8.5 real terms, nominal 14%, corporate sector which is more industrial and services will grow at that rate. 18% without, on a very benign tax regime as compared to say other alternate asset classes of debt or whatever, will get 6% return. And if you see I'll give a very brilliant example of what in fact Mr. Kotak also quotes many a time, that HDFC's market cap has increased from 500 crores to 1 lakh crores in last 10-15 years. But pity is that the retail ownership, which was say entirely Indian owned 100%, and now is hardly 26% owned by Indians, 74% owned by foreigners. So in this entire wealth creation, the retail participation has been almost very, very low. So if we really want prosperity to go down to the bottom of the pyramid and the middle class, then we need to understand that the part of the assets there, because there's liquidity and risk, must go into equities. You imagine it this way, that 18% of your money doubles in 4 years, at 6% money doubles in 12 years. So if you retire with 20 lakh rupees, a typical Indian, then what kind of standard of living will it be if there was investment in equities vis-a-vis non-equity? It's going to be materially different. And therefore, we need to increase the penetration of equities, and this is something which brokers alone can't do.
Indians need to be part of its own, growth story.
I think maybe perception has to change, because there's a perception that stock market is not for good people, is risky, is like casino, is speculative, and whether it does any national good or not, there also many people are not aware. But a market like India, economy like India, will require huge capital investment. And if you require a huge gross capital formation to take place, it can't take place without equities. The first equity money comes, which attracts debt money. And equity can't happen without stock market, because the liquidity and that is what will get the people to. So I think there's a national need that we encourage equity investing by retail investors, because India is going to grow very well. So this wealth creation, let them participate, the Indian people, the typical Indian retail, and let there be more people like that. And if government and our public, if this becomes part of public policy, it will become easier for everybody to achieve the objective.
Achieve the objective. Well, on that note, we take a very short break. We'll be back, but we'll discuss with our panel with regard to the regulatory issues. Are there any regulatory issues that the brokers are facing? We'll get back the details on that in just a bit. Welcome back. You're watching the prelude of the Financial Leadership Award 2011. We're talking about the Indian broking industry. Let me get your views, Mr. Agrawal, now with regard to the regulatory issues. We understand that the regulatory issues have helped in getting more people into the market. They've been conducive. But are there any issues, challenges or consideration that you would like to put forth which needs to be addressed on an immediate basis?
Yeah, there are 2-3 things which clearly come to mind. One is that the entire charges or regulator is also somehow getting aligned to seeing more turnover than actual, what is good for the investor. What is good for the investor is, say, buying stocks in cash and taking it home. So holding period should be increased and that kind of initiative. But if you look at the schedule of charges, it looks that it is favoring for more turnover. If you trade more, then your kind of charges are less. So there is not much of encouragement for buying and holding the stocks. That's one thing. Second is that the very inclusion. If you want to open somebody's account today, it has become nightmare. I mean, in the sense that you need some 35-40 signatures, despite so many kind of rationalizations, legal rationalizations. The whole agreement of you got to see the agreement what is required, the kind of documentation which is required, and now maintenance documentation is required. So automatically you are excluding a lot of natural people who want to get in, the small people, the masses. So I think there has probably this other Aadhaar, the UID which is going to come, that might be the starting point. But there is a, see, because ultimately for somebody who is a crazy guy who gets into the market, for one guy you cannot punish the entire nation. For some bad element, in this millions of people, there will be few guys who will be definitely nuts, and they will come even if you have all these restrictions, your client and those kind of things. I'm not against any kind of regulation. The issue is that you are in the process.
To simplify.
You have lost the whole objective of including the people. People with the small savings of 1 lakh or 2, they need higher return much more than the guys who have millions. So that very basic. Earlier I remember when we started off in 90s, and if you wanted to buy some stocks and I would meet you first time, I would say I'll buy the stock and tomorrow I'll sell the contract. And it used to work brilliantly. There was not a problem between client and the broker, and the client himself kind of creating any problem. But today, even if my son wants to start an account, I think it is impossible. I can't do anything for a week. So I think the very huge entry barrier which has been created in the name of regulation or good paperwork or whatever, that needs to be rationalized. It has been done with a good objective, but I think it has gone too far.
It's coming as a block.
It's complete. If we can break that properly, maybe Aadhaar or whatever, but somebody must sit there and look at what is the practical way to do it, and include the masses. Otherwise, this is not going to happen. I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen.